Our movie begins with Derek and his beautiful family arriving at their new home. They were thrilled about their house and their child. Derek loved his wife, Sharon, very much, and they shared every part of their day with each other. He was highly successful in his job and very committed. The next day, he went to work and met a new employee named Lisa. From here, Derek's life begins to change because of this woman. We see Derek in a meeting, shining as usual, but everyone noticed the presence of the new and attractive employee in the office. They advised Derek to stay away from her, reminding him that he married the last beautiful woman in the office. He reassured them at the time that he loved his wife and wouldn't engage with Lisa. However, as he was leaving the company, he spoke to Lisa, and they laughed together, as he initially fooled her by introducing himself in a funny way. After she introduced herself, his gaze lingered on her somewhat strangely. When Lisa looked at his file with great interest, Derek discovered the next day that she had become his personal assistant instead of Patrick, who was on leave due to illness. Derek asked her to come to his office to learn more about the job, and they discussed an upcoming company party that prohibited spouses from attending, though the events were usually quiet. Derek noticed that despite being only her second day, she had already completed a lot of work and was beginning to pay close attention to all his details, showing skills beyond a temporary assistant. As usual, Derek talked to his wife on the phone and told her about his day. Strangely, Lisa was eavesdropping on the conversation. When he returned home, his wife reminded him of her desire to continue her studies, and asked why he hadn't called her after she left him a message, realizing that Lisa hadn't delivered it. When he mentioned Lisa to his wife, she felt jealous, especially since they had agreed that the staff in his office should be male, as she knew his tendency to be drawn to attractive women. The next day, Sharon visited her husband at work and brought along their son, Kyle. At that moment, Lisa entered Derek's office, and he introduced her to his wife, who felt uncomfortable due to Lisa's striking beauty. Derek assured his wife that Patrick would return the next day and replace Lisa. However, during this time, Lisa entered his office and started examining their photos together and some of his belongings. When they began decorating the company for the Christmas festivities, Patrick returned to work, and Derek was happy to finally be rid of Lisa. However, Lisa sat at Mark's desk, another assistant who was also absent due to illness. Patrick and Lisa began talking, and Patrick realized that she was sly and skillful at getting what she wanted, but they grew closer because their thoughts aligned. On another day, Derek entered the break room and found Lisa crying. He took his food and left but was forced to return to ask why she was crying. She started sharing her issues with her boyfriend, claiming she felt it was her fault. Derek comforted her, telling her that she was not wrong and was beautiful, perhaps just not having met the right person yet. At that moment, Lisa confessed that she envied Sharon for having a home, family, and loving husband. Derek reassured her, saying that nothing in life is perfect. After she thanked him, she left, and his friend Ben entered, noting Lisa's beauty and warning him that some people see the workplace as hunting grounds, and she seemed to target him. Derek returned to his office to find a thank you note from Lisa along with a CD of music he enjoyed. He then went home to get ready for the party. When he arrived, he found Lisa dressed attractively. She jokingly asked him to drink the same drink with her. They began discussing their ambitions and dreams at work. She enticed him to drink with her, even though he typically avoided alcohol, and they ended up dancing together as she dared him to keep drinking without losing control. As he found himself getting closer to her, he pulled back before anything could happen and went to the bathroom to calm down. However, she followed him, throwing herself on him, and despite his efforts to stop her, she was persistent. At that moment, an employee walked in and saw them. Derek was furious because his reputation and family were now in jeopardy. He pushed Lisa away and left the party in anger, not understanding why she insisted on this behavior or what she wanted from him. Afterward, he returned home but didn't tell his wife what had happened, even though he was deeply troubled. The next day, he went to work, focused on her, wanting to know her intentions toward him, but she returned, acting very politely. At the end of the day, he saw her leaving with Patrick, feeling relieved and thinking he was finally rid of her pursuit. He went down to get into his car but found her getting in as well, coming to apologize for her behavior at the party. He told her that they were under the influence of alcohol, and it would be better to forget about it. She replied, "What if I can't forget?" then took off her coat, seductively offering herself to him. He shouted at her angrily, insulted her, and threw her out of the car. She was deeply hurt, as he was probably the first man to reject her despite her beauty, which made everyone want to be with her. When he returned home, he decided to confess everything to his wife, but before he could talk to her, he discovered that her sister's husband had been cheating on her with his secretary for a year and a half. Derek comforted her, assuring her that he would never betray her. Thus, he changed his mind and chose not to tell her what had happened. The next day, Derek confided in his friend Ben about Lisa's manipulative actions, deciding to file a complaint against her. But Ben warned him that Lisa might turn the situation against him, especially given his past encounters with female employees at the company. Derek then went to see his manager to discuss Lisa, and was about to file a complaint when the manager informed him that the agency had called that day to inform them that Lisa wouldn't be returning to work. She had been transferred elsewhere, and a new employee would take her place. Derek was surprised they hadn't mentioned the reason for her transfer, but he didn't care as long as she was gone, considering it a Christmas gift. He returned home and had a lovely Christmas with his family. They went out for entertainment and returned late. He noticed a new email in his inbox, and upon opening it, the screen filled with pictures of Lisa, with a message saying, "See you in the new year, handsome." He was startled and worried his wife might see the email, but things went smoothly this time, and she didn't see the photos. The next day, he returned to his office and sent her a message asking her to leave him alone, but it was clear that was not her intention. She was determined to ensnare him. Later, we see him at home, packing for a trip with a new client named Joe, as he needed to close this deal. At the party, he received a drink from a woman, oddly the same signature drink as Lisa's. While he was talking to his wife, Sharon, on the phone, he saw her enter the room, feeling a surge of irritation and affirming that there would never be anything between them. Unnoticed, she slipped a drug into his drink, giving him her room number and saying, "Don't keep me waiting." He replied, "You're sick and insane. Leave me alone and let me be." Then, he returned to his group, and after drinking, he stumbled back to his room, losing consciousness. He woke up the next day with a headache, running late for his meeting, and feeling humiliated. Moments later, he received a message notifying him that his wife had arrived, so he excused himself and left the meeting, expecting to see her, only to find Lisa instead of Sharon. She acted as if they were in a relationship, but he denied it, pulling her aside to expose her scheme. She was unaffected and started speaking crazily, saying, "Our looks in the elevator, the company party, our special drink, was all of that normal to you?" She added, "You told me if you were single, you'd consider marrying me." To her, this meant he desired the relationship. She asked, "Would you like me to go in and tell everyone the truth now?" He responded, "Do whatever you want, I don't care, but there will never be anything between us." Finally, he realized she was crazy and intent on destroying him. However, she continued crying as if genuinely convinced of their relationship. After the meeting, Derek returned to his room and found Lisa lying in his bed, naked. Not only that, but she had taken a large dose of drugs and passed out. He called an ambulance immediately because it was a suicide attempt, and feared he might be accused of her death since she was in his room. That night, his wife called his friend Ben to ask if something was wrong, prompting her to go to the hospital to check on him. There, Detective Reese sat with them, trying to understand what had happened. At that moment, Sharon realized her husband was involved with Lisa. Derek desperately tried to clear his name, but all the evidence seemed to work against him, and the detective wasn't convinced that Lisa had orchestrated everything. Nonetheless, Derek insisted on his innocence, stating that nothing had happened between them. When Reese told him that Lisa had listed him as her emergency contact, he panicked and rushed to make sure Sharon was okay. He took her home, but she refused to speak to him. At home, she confronted him with everything he had hidden from her, telling him he had been lying and keeping many secrets. Derek tried to convince her that Lisa was sick and insane, but his wife accused him of lying. He continued shouting as he watched his marriage crumble before his eyes. The next day, the detective met with Lisa and told her that Derek didn't want to see her again, but Lisa claimed he had sent her a bouquet of her favorite flowers. The detective looked at the card and saw Derek's name, which increased her suspicions. The detective listened to Lisa's story, which was entirely different from Derek's, but Lisa presented a well-thought-out narrative. At the company, Derek received a severe reprimand as the incident affected the company's reputation, and they lost their new client because of it. Later, Detective Reese visited him with Lisa's diary, which was filled with detailed accounts of their supposed relationship, supporting her story. However, she reassured him that he wouldn't need to file a complaint against Lisa, as her sister had taken her to San Francisco. Derek returned home, and his wife opened the door for him again, giving him a chance to make things right. He told her that his birthday was coming up, and asked if she would allow him to celebrate it alone. She laughed and closed the door without answering. On his birthday, she went out with him for dinner, and he was happy that she agreed to go out with him. After 3 months away from home, he fulfilled her every request. When he asked to return home, she gave him a gift. Meanwhile, the nanny was at their house, looking after their son, Kyle, who was asleep in his bed. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and when she opened it, she found Lisa entering the house. The nanny tried to stop her, but Lisa tricked her into thinking she was Sharon's friend and went upstairs to Kyle. At the end of the day, Derek and Sharon reconciled, and he opened her gift, finding the house key inside, meaning she had agreed to let him return. However, when they arrived home, they discovered the story about the strange woman who had entered their house. They rushed to check on Kyle and found he had been kidnapped, so they immediately called the police. They searched everywhere, and eventually found their son in Derek's car. They took him to the hospital to ensure he was okay, where they met Detective Reese, who was finally convinced of their innocence and promised to capture Lisa. They returned home, put Kyle to sleep, but then found their bedroom ransacked, with a photo of them together, Sharon's head cut out of it. They called the police again to report what had happened. The next day, Sharon managed to confront Lisa and threatened to kill her if she ever came near her house again. They decided to install a new security system in their home. A few days later, things calmed down, and they returned to their normal lives. Derek went to work, and at the company, Lisa called her friend Patrick, using fake information about Derek to learn his schedule. At the time, she was watching Sharon from outside their house. When Sharon left, Lisa managed to break into the house. On her way, Sharon realized she had forgotten to activate the alarm, so she decided to return. Feeling uneasy as she arrived back home, she entered and heard a sound coming from upstairs, where Lisa was waiting for her. A fierce battle ensued between them, with one of them having to come out on top. At this time, Derek realized that Lisa was in his home, facing Sharon, and he called the police immediately, rushing toward the house. But Sharon was bravely facing Lisa, and soon the tables turned as Lisa gained the upper hand. Suddenly, Lisa disappeared, and Sharon searched everywhere, only for Lisa to reappear and attack her, striking her on the back with a piece of wood. Since Sharon knew her house well, she managed to use that to her advantage and trap Lisa. Before Lisa fell, Sharon tried to save her, but Lisa grabbed her, pulling them both down as the wood broke, and Sharon was on the verge of falling. In the end, Lisa let go and fell, with the chandelier falling on her, killing her instantly. The police arrived, and Sharon threw herself into her husband Derek's arms. Finally, they could live their lives in peace and security now that Lisa was gone, and so our movie ends. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell.